If your mother was alive, she's not coming back for you.
You don't know that.
I know. I never got nothing by waiting around. You want a family? Go out there, get a family.
Welcome to the official Game of Thrones podcast, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I am Jason Concepcion.
And I'm Greta Johnson, and today we get to go back in time and meet little baby Dunk. I know.
He should have gone to the family store, picked up a family. We are talking about the 5th episode of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, titled In the Name of the Mother, written by Hiram Martinez and T. McKell, and directed by Owen Harris.
Yes, and our guest today is Director Owen Harris.
Ooh. Warning. If you haven't watched the episode, watch that, then come back and listen to us.
Be vigilant. Don't die.
Jason, will you give us your quick recap of this episode?
Sure. It is trial time. Mm-hmm. Everybody's a horse and ready to go. Baelor gives some quick instructions. Don't die. Also, I will handle the King's Guard, he says, because they can't hurt me. They're not allowed to because of their oaths, which is the first moment you're like, this guy's smart. This guy thought of everything, didn't he? The melee begins, and Dunk immediately goes into concussion protocol, and we get a flashback to Baby Dunk, to his days in King's Landing. We meet him as a young scavenger with his friend Rafe as they pick the valuables off a battlefield, which Rafe and Dunk want to leave. They want to go to the free cities, and they're hoping to get enough money to do that. Dunk is worried, though, as we heard in the clip, that his mother, who has disappeared, what if she comes back? He knows that she's probably dead, but he still wonders. And Rafe pretty brutally disabuses him of any dream that his mother might come back to him. They go to buy their ticket, but the prices have gone up because everybody's got the same old idea. And here we meet Alistair, who is a corrupt member of the City Watch and also a petty criminal in the streets of Flea Bottom. One thing leads to another, and he kills Rafe, who dies in Dunk's arms. He's about to kill Dunk, too, when out from some alehouse, presumably, bursts Sir Arlen, roaring, sword in hand. He kills Alistair. He kills Alistair's little goon buddy, and Dunk, without any other better idea, and his only friend in the world, dead in his arms, goes to follow Sir Arlen. He follows him for, it seems like a really long time until Sir Arlen finally notices him.
It does seem like a really
It seems like he's drinking out of puddles and stuff. Yeah. And, eventually Sir Arlen notices him, and this is when the dream ends, and when Dunk, kind of hearing Egg screaming through the fog of his concussion to get up, manages to get up. Duncan is exhausted. He's getting cut up. He's getting stabbed. He's getting hit in the head.
It is not looking good for our guy.
But finally, he manages to get a hold of Aerion and gets him to tap out, to essentially withdraw his complaint. After that, Dunk has won. Steely Pate tends to Dunk's wounds. They're cutting his armor off. Baelor comes in and is like, hey guys, great fight, everybody. Could somebody take my helmet off? And when they take Baelor's helmet off, his brains fall out and he collapses and dies. And Dunk is left to wonder, was any of this worth it?
Brutal.
And it's a good question. I mean,
yeah.
Greta, your thoughts on the episode, and was any of this worth it?
I mean, yeah, that is a really good question. I feel like we're going to be talking about that in a number of different ways in this episode. This fight scene feels very different from what we've seen in other Game of Thrones shows.
For sure.
I think the realism, the grittiness is very, very powerful here. And we're going to get into that with the director of this episode, which will be really interesting. I think, the flashback placement also is very interesting. To do that cut in the middle of the action that this entire season has been building to is a pretty bold move, but I think the emotional payoff is totally there. And you mentioned Egg yelling, get up, get up. Like, I'm pretty sure that's going to be in my brain forever. Yeah. It's a really powerful scene, and you need that build up to get there.
It's also a mirror image of the book. This is basically how it
Oh,
unfolds in the
that's
book as well.
interesting. Huh.
Were you surprised by Baylor's death at the end?
Well, yeah. I think now is also a good time to say I've been kind of worried this whole time that Dunk was going to die, which
Sure, I get it.
probably is like,
I get it.
you know, there's a series of novellas. I guess I probably could have inferred that he was going to make it. But in this world, you never know.
You do never know. I mean, the Baylor death, it's almost out of the frying pan into the fryer, because now what was kind of a local dispute, a small-ish argument involving the royal family,
Yes.
has now thrown the entire succession and the stability of the realm kind of into question.
Yeah.
Everything is in flux right now.
Should we start from the beginning?
Let's do that.
And take a listen to a clip of Dunk and Egg talking before the battle.
Yeah, let's do that.
You best be here when I get back. Rob me, and I'll hunt you down. With dogs.
It's quite touching.
Mm.
It's also like, you really want to be threatening another of the Targaryen in front of a stadium of witnesses, even though it's a very touching thing.
It's
like
a sweet little callback.
It is a sweet little callback, but I'm sure people are like, what? Wait, hold on a second. He's going to hunt him down.
That is really funny.
It was very sweet.
There's also nothing like Peter Claffey on a horse to make
Yeah.
Lil Dex look real small.
No. It struck me in the opening crash of this fight, just what a risk it is that everyone is taking,
Oh my
even though they're
God.
doing it for, their own reasons of ambition, and some of them, I'm sure, are very confident in their abilities. It is violent.
I think this is the first time Egg is really realizing what Dunk is in for at this
Yeah.
moment, and he seems genuinely terrified by this.
Yeah, it is absolutely brutal. And despite Baylor's instructions, Dunk is off his horse immediately.
I think the chaos of this scene is so powerful too, because it rings. I mean, not that I've ever been in a trial of 7, but it just seems like, of course, you wouldn't be able to keep track of your guys and where everyone is and what all is happening, especially once you're on the ground. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, and it's also like all the armor looks the same. It's very foggy out.
Yeah.
Everybody's covered in mud and blood.
Yep.
Dunk has a concussion. Like, what did you make of the in-helmet shots? I loved these.
Same. I think because of exactly what we're talking about. I mean, the sensory limitations, the idea that you would just be able to see so little going into it adds so much to the disorientation that I imagine everyone would be feeling in a moment like that.
I can't wait to talk to Owen about this, because I feel like it's almost a subversive way to film a fight. Usually you want a fight to look cool on some level, right?
Right.
For there to be some sort of cinematic or poetic kind of action. And it's not that this is not compelling, but it's that there is nothing pretty or aesthetic about it.
Right. Yes. I think also the fact that usually in a battle like this, you would want the viewer to have some sense of who has the upper hand in any
and
given
you don't
moment.
know.
And we just have no idea.
No idea.
So from there, we jump to our flashback.
Yeah.
Let's listen to a clip of, this is Rafe and Baby Dunk, very early on.
What? You've never seen a man die before?
Yeah, but not like that. He was crying for his mother.
Yeah, what's she gonna do? Left the fucking horse off his legs.
This flashback is so interesting because this whole story is in part about how kids in this world should be raised. And here, I know you get the feeling that Dunk has an innate goodness about him, that it would have been, of course, it would have been great for him if his mom was around and his dad, and if he knew his father. But at the same time, there is something good about him that was not going to be kept down.
Yeah, well, and I think you really see it in this scene where clearly these two have absolutely nothing. And even then, Dunk is hesitant to to participate in victimless crimes.
Yeah.
Because he just he sees the inherent wrongness of it and he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah. And robbing a man who is, crying out for his mother as he's dying.
Yeah, victimless isn't quite the right
well,
word,
I
is
mean,
it?
victimless in the sense that there's nothing that anybody could do for this guy.
Yeah, he's not
like
gonna
he
spend
took
that money.
part in a battle and he's done.
Yeah.
It's sad that he's going out like this, but to contrast Rafe's kind of ruthlessness, her
Yeah.
reality-based view and this is life, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas Duncan is I don't know, he's seen death, but the universality of it, that everybody's got a mother that they're crying out for, I think really affects him. And it's the core of what makes him a hero.
Yes. And I think this is one of those indications that this is a flashback that's working because it's telling you backstory, but it's also helping inform the person we see who's in the middle of this fight.
It's almost unthinkable to try and consider what their lives must be like. There is no money, there is no food, there is no education, there's no nothing. They have each other. They're
Right. There's no
stealing
parents.
from dead lords and knights in a way that's, clearly dangerous. They could be hung for this.
Yeah.
And of course, life in Flea Bottom, which is the most destitute, poorest part of King's Landing, is really rough. Let's listen to the clip of Rafe talking about wanting to leave this place.
We'll be sailing off into all kinds of adventures. Don't you want that?
I do. I just...
What?
What if the free cities are no better than here? What if they're worse?
Then we'll go someplace else.
What if it's all shit? Every place. What if this is the best there is?
That would be quite sad.
How wise do you think that question is on Dunk's part?
I mean, I think it's an important question. The free cities of Essos are a collection of city-states, each with their own kind of unique culture and society. Many of them are brutal slave societies.
Right.
So it would not necessarily be better. Bravos aside, which is kind of this mercantilist neo-banking society. But very often, claimants to the Iron Throne in this era, if they lost a civil war, they would flee to Essos, where they would, look for funding and try and make their way to try and come back and seize the throne again. But it is a place that people flee to when they kind of lose the Game of Thrones, so to speak, over in Westeros. It's also the kind of dominant culture of Westeros, the Andal culture, immigrated from Essos. So it's kind of a reversal of history in that people fled to Westeros from Essos and now they're fleeing back.
That is
but
really
it's a very common thing. When we meet Dany, she has fled there after her family lost the civil war to the forces of Robert Baratheon. She and her brother escaped to Essos, where they just kind of barely got by.
Yeah. One theme we've been seeing really throughout this season, but I think especially in this episode, is there's a lot of talk of the role of mothers, but we never see any mothers. And it's that idea of kind of registering the absence of mothers in this world and thinking about how much that's creating a lot of the brutality that we're seeing here.
Yeah, it's like missing mothers and absent fathers who kids raising themselves and essentially having to find their own family wherever they are with whoever they happen to be with.
Yeah.
It is, watching this flashback, kind of a miracle that Dunk turns out to be a good guy, don't you think?
No kidding. Yes.
Let's listen to the clip of Alistair ambushing Rafe and Dunk.
Holding out on us.
That's ours.
Little gutter rats don't have silver. Only little thieves.
We didn't thieve nothing. We earned that.
Stealing from dead nobles is still stealing.
What's stealing from us?
That's life.
Awful.
Yes. Terrible. I mean, that's life also is,
I mean, listen, Alistair is just the kind of character that I think thrives in this atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taking from the weak and putting his knife to the throats of anyone who crosses him.
Yeah.
Rewatching this, I'm like, you ever read a story or reread a story or rewatch a movie and you're like, don't do that. I know this is coming, but don't do it.
Yes.
It's the same feeling when Rafe steals his dagger. It's like you've already pushed this guy.
Right.
And like it is unfair that he's robbing you of what you have robbed.
Yes.
But you push. Why do this?
Yeah, this is not the justice you're looking for here.
And it's just so sad.
Oh, it's so sad. It's also, we're used to this world being brutal.
It was
and
brutal.
I think it really is watching her throat get cut.
Ugh.
Where I'm like, oh, there's the Game of Thrones we know. It's like the show has been so tender and sweet, but to be reminded of the brutality that exists here is, we're getting it in this scene. This scene is so informative. Also, at the end of it, when Arlen comes in and really does save the day. I guess maybe save the day is a little strong.
No, I think save the day is quite the accurate way of putting it. And also the fact that through his stupor, he, we've been kind of searching for Arlen seems like a good enough guy and there must be something good about him, even though we rarely do see it.
And we have not seen the something good until now.
It is here where despite his intense inebriation, he is able to hear that something bad is happening.
Yes.
And he gets involved when he could just stay drunk.
Yeah.
That is pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's protecting the weak. And it's also, oh my God, what a deeply traumatic moment for Dunk. And to have this person, this benevolent drunk human, just come in and save him the way he does. Of course, Dunk is going to imprint on that guy.
And I also,
right?
I completely agree. I also found myself thinking, Arlen, I hope that he's hydrating. I hope that he was hydrating for some part of his life because this guy is rip-roaring 24 hours a day.
Yes.
What an incredibly complex figure.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the end of this flashback, Dunk is pulled back into reality by Egg screaming at him.
Well, let's listen to the clip of Egg in his sweet little voice yelling at Dunk to get up because it's such a powerful scene.
Get up! Get up, sir!
He's dead! It's over!
Get up, sir! Get up! Get up! Get up, Sir Duncan! Get up, sir! Get up!
Get up.
Oh, the way everybody kind of leans forward.
I know.
What a scene.
I wonder, do you perceive that flashback as happening in Dunk's mind, like as a memory he needed to have, a recollection he needed to remember in that moment to steel him for the fight? That's how I saw it.
That's a good question. I don't know if I saw it quite as a literal flashback happening to him. I think I thought of it more as information we as viewers needed to understand the emotional impact of Egg yelling at him to get up, which was the same thing that Arlen said when they finally did interact with each other.
Yeah.
But either way, the emotional impact is there.
It is absolutely there. And then, of course, Dunk finally, after many hits and many stab wounds, gets a hold of Aerion. And it is quite satisfying to watch him pummel the guy.
It is. Well, and we finally see that there is an ease to this violence that Dunk can, when he's angry enough, turns out he can beat the shit out of someone.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if he's good at fighting, but he is huge. And he can use his size
and if
well.
he's real mad, Yeah.
And then we get the aftermath where, I mean, just getting Dunk out of this armor is going to be mild surgery.
Uh-huh.
And then we get the butcher's bill. Beesbury and Harding dead in the first charge of the bout, gone.
Yep.
And then Baylor comes in to say, "Hey, good job, everybody.
Yep.
We did it. Someone take my helmet off." Ooh. An absolutely shocking moment. And did you, you can kind of sense it. There's a dreaminess to Baylor, right? The way he comes,
starts to teeter a little, and that's when I was like, "Oh no!"
Potentially the worst outcome, barring Dunk dying, is this.
Maybe worse than Dunk dying, really.
I mean, for
the world,
I
not
completely
for me
agree.
personally.
No, I completely agree. If you were living somewhere in the Seven Kingdoms
Yeah.
and you got this news, wait a second, Crown Prince Baylor
Yeah.
died taking part in a trial of 7 involving some guy,
Yes.
you'd be like, this is horrendous.
Yes.
So it must be an incredibly shocking moment for everyone, and Dunk along with him.
Clearly so much to unpack. I think we should just go to our conversation now with executive producer and director Owen Harris, who directed this episode.
That's great. Yeah, let's do it.
There's just so much. Well, we are very excited now to welcome executive producer and director Owen Harris to the show. Owen, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Let's talk about the Trial of the 7. It's just an amazing and chaotic display. It must have been very complex to shoot. What was that like?
Chaotic and complex to shoot. So no, it was a really well written fight. I think that Ira had deliberately sort of wanted to. I mean, in the book as well, it's got a sort of a tonality to it. This fight, mainly because you're stuck with Dunk. It's not like even though it's a 7-on-7. You're with Dunk with every blow, and I think that does something very interesting. So you're not even with the person Dunk's fighting. Like in most duels, you will always take both sides, but something about being stuck to Dunk throughout all of it gave it a real sort of tonality. And I think also just this idea that this is a young guy whose dream of becoming a knight. There's a reality to that. I think. There's a and that reality is sort of painful. It's a sharp, hard, painful world, and
Literally.
and we wanted to sort of, and a cruel world, and we wanted to dramatize that through this fight where you really felt that we were inside that helmet with Dunk, feeling everything, because so much of the show is from that POV. It felt a shame to not continue that throughout the fight, and so it did, which that comes with its own challenges, really, because you still want to feel the scale and the stakes and the sense of everything that's going on. So it was piecing it together to figure out how to start wide and to enjoy the sort of the spectacle of it all, and then when to sort of dive in and be with Dunk.
There is something uniquely honest and subversive in the way that it's so messy, and something happened over here, but you're not even sure what it was. What are the challenges of trying to balance that, not confuse the audience, but also stay true to that honesty of the perspective that you're trying to show here?
I think it's we had a great stunt team and a great stunt director, Rob Inch, and it was sort of it's collaborating, isn't it? And it's sort of, on the one hand, you want the action to look amazing. You always want it to be constantly related to the character. You want to feel the character all the way through it. And the temptation quite often with these sorts of battles is to sort of like blow the doors off with the stunts and with the and I think it was a question of sort of balancing that. So actually some of the action is quite blunt in a way. It's quite painful. It's quite awkward. It's not sort of like necessarily all eye-catching sort of crazy falls or whatever. There's a sort of a reality to even the way that Dunk moves, and the stunt performer that also doubled for Peter. And Peter did a lot of this, as you can see, because he was at some point he removes his helm. But just that physicality of Dunk. He's not a sophisticated fighter.
Right.
He lacks sophistication. It's sort of his charm in a way.
When I was watching those scenes, I couldn't help but think of another very famous Game of Thrones battle, the Battle of the Bastards, and like how claustrophobic it felt in there because everyone is so packed in, and there was a very real element of that too. But it felt to me like this even took that to the next step with just like the chaos of it all. How much did you consider other Game of Thrones battles as you were figuring out what this one would look like?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that we didn't look at Battle of the Bastards, because it's one of the great, it's one of the great, certainly recent, but one of the great battle sequences. And what you don't want to be doing is trying to copy it, because I think the Battle of the Bastards, the whole thing was its scale, was, as you say,
Yeah.
it's just the
Yes.
massive men that are going to come to blows over this thing, and just watching that unfold. And that's what sort of the jaw-dropping sort of quality of it.
Well, and that makes more sense for that story, right? Whereas with this one, it is about point of view.
It is that point of view, and it is a bunch of guys with sharp weapons or very sharp sort of long sticks trying to sort of like kill each other, and it's painful and it's awkward, and you got horses thundering past. So the reality of something like that is chaotic, and it was really fun to be able to get as close as we could to creating that sense of like, the moment the joust begins, it is quite literally a free-for-all. It's last man standing, and these are sort of 14 guys that just want to sort of get at each other's throats. So there isn't much order to it. And I think that that's why we took this approach to sort of making it chaotic. And, just in answer to your question, there are obviously some fantastic battle sequences. And what you do is when you get a job like this or a task like this, you look at all of them and you think, why does this work? You don't look at them to necessarily take anything from them. You look at them to say, why does this work, or this particular action work for this particular characteristic? And you start to sort of hone your sequence down from there, I think.
This episode is notable for its flashback scene right in the middle of the battle when Dunk gets concussed. He flashes back to his young adulthood, really, in Flea Bottom. And it's such a wonderful tone setter. You really understand, I think, the connection that Dunk had with Sir Arlen. Tell us about shooting those scenes.
There were two parts to it. There was the device of flashing back right in the middle of this battle, which I loved. I thought that was a really clever thing to do in the scene, because I think sometimes with these sort of combat scenes, holding the tension is part of the challenge of how do you keep that tension when you two guys are basically just swinging at each other. And there was something really lovely about cutting away just at the moment you're about to sort of dive into it, and I thought it was a really clever way of building that tension. But at the same time, you're going to go back and you're going to understand something about the guy who's busy lying on his back in the mud, and you're going to discover something very particular about, I guess, the sort of the resolve that character needed to have to just get up and get through life, and where he started from, and also that sense of loss that he had at a very young age, probably first of all with his mother. I don't think he ever knew his father, and then with Rafe, and just sort of seeing the world, and sort of like, I guess, the sort of how vicious the world can be, and how uncaring the world can be through a boy's eyes. And then so it was a really interesting sort of story, sort of I guess, segue to make right at that moment, because then when you come back with Dunk, you're sort of all of a sudden, when Dunk clambers to his feet, you've got a slightly different perspective on this guy that you've been trying to figure out all season, and now you've got a bit more history to go on, and a bit more sense of like, somewhere inside this guy there's this resolve. I guess it's that sort of classic Rocky thing, he's built of tougher stuff, and we just tell the legend of it, I guess.
I love the sound design in that moment when he gets Aerion to submit, and you could barely hear it through the ringing in Dunk's skull. Tell us about that choice. It's so unique.
Yeah, I think that, again, it's that sort of feeling. I mean, I don't know whether you've ever been hit in the head or anything like that. It's maybe we all are familiar. Maybe as a kid, you get a football in the head, or you get bashed or whatever, you fall out. But it is that ringing sensation where everything goes a bit foggy. And so it was about playing around with space, really, and where Dunk was in terms of space, and how everything sort of, in those moments, things start to close in around you, and literally all you're sort of left with is your breath. and you can maybe just about feel the thumping of your heart, and it's sort of everything starts to shut down. And then what happens is he starts to sort of regain consciousness, I suppose. Things start to flood in, but they're fragmented because you're still not completely orientated. And I guess it was just a way of disorientating the audience in a way that made it sort of subjective, and feel you almost joined Dunk in his sort of like spaced out sort of moment. And so it was just playing around with that. But it was, the sound design in particular, this episode was really fun because there's so much you can do to add to things that are quite difficult just to land visually. You can certainly see pain on someone's face. It can look painful, it can whatever, but to actually climb inside someone's head and make it feel like how they would feel in the world at that moment was a really fun thing to unwrap. Yeah.
We spend a lot of time with Sir Arlen in this episode, and Danny Webb imbues him with a wild nobleness. What was it like working with him?
Oh, I love Danny. I just wanted to spend more time with him because, in a funny sort of way, the flashback to Dunk's youth it works so well. But it's sort of like that's where the legend of Dunk is built, really.
Yeah.
It's the school of hard knocks. You never get the feeling that he was a gentle master. They had to live a tough life on the road. He's not perfect, clearly, but again, what you get is this sense of honesty. There's an honesty to his character, and Danny just plays it. He just does something with that is so good and entertaining and funny, and he's got amazing physical timing.
Yeah.
There are little things that we asked him to do, and he'd be like, "No, I got it," and he'd go off and he'd turn over and he'd just do a little thing, and he'd be like, "God, perfect, that's it." He hit the rhythm of a certain beat of humor or a look or whatever. So yeah, and there isn't a lot of screen time for Sir Arlen. I think it's sort of very much down to him that you're really left with a strong sense of that character just from the moments that we get to enjoy being with him.
Well, I also feel like the other piece of what's happening during this battle is Dunk is realizing that this is what it means to be a knight. Like he has to confront the reality of this violence in a way that he just hasn't before. So it's also very easy to picture him being like, wait, is that this is what I signed up for?
No, totally. It's pretty shitty, it's sort of like, and unless,
it seems terrible.
Yeah, and it was almost it was one of the most compelling things about taking on a story like this. I loved the idea of that revelation about what being a knight actually means. And it's sort of, lots of tales are told about knights. Even the word knight conjures a certain quality of human being, if you like. And in a funny sort of way, it's sort of fiction.
Yeah.
And I think what we discover in Dunk is sort of, there is a nobility to him, but he doesn't look like a knight. He's got none of the finesse of what you'd imagine a knight to look like, but he has these qualities. But at the same time, if you really want to call yourself a knight, it's not about inheriting a title. It's about taking on a moral code. Most people wouldn't, when push comes to shove, might shy away from the thing that could end up with them getting beaten or their hand chopped off or whatever. So it was just an interesting way to look at that idea of chivalry and knighthood in a way from that sort of small folk perspective, which is what we're talking about in terms of a knight isn't something that is inherited or is given to you. It's something you got to earn, and you're going to earn it the hard way. And I thought that's what I think is a really fun part of this story.
Final question. We've been asking people for their knight name. If you were a knight, as in Sir Duncan the Tall, what would your knight sobriquet be?
I have no idea. I think it would definitely be in the world of a dunk, because I wouldn't. I'm not. I'm not that sort of knightly world is not. It's not even appealing to me. But
well, how tall are you, Owen? Do you have the height? Can you just be Sir Owen the Tall?
No, probably the opposite. Owen the Small. But what about Sir O? There you go. It's sort of like,
that's nice.
I love it.
Okay.
Because that way it can go one of two ways. It could be like O or whatever. But so I'm Sir O. Yeah.
Great.
Well, Owen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the podcast.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, no, thank you for your time. Thank you.
What a thoughtful guy.
Yes, that was a super interesting conversation.
I
what an
agree.
intense episode to direct. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when he talked about like permitting the chaos in that battle scene,
Yes.
even from his own point of view. It makes total sense that
Yes.
you can't completely control that. And that's sort of the whole point.
Letting the Battle of the Bastards, for instance, and other action scenes inform the chaos.
Yes.
But doing their own thing. Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Okay, it is time now for our weekly check-in, most valuable night. Jason, who would you like to knight?
I mean, now is the time. It's got to be Duncan now.
Jason, that is technically breaking a rule.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, you broke the rules the first time. But I also feel like the rule should be that you can't, I mean, there's a moment for both of them to choose them. And I feel like
Yes.
who else could it
respect
be?
that.
I guess, like, if I had to pick a non-dunk, which I can't, it would have to be...
Well,
it would have to be... Then I'd pick Egg, honestly, for stopping the horn guy from blowing the horn and Dunk losing on a technicality.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But I'm still going with Dunk. Come on, he did it.
I was going to do Baylor because you did Baylor last week.
Yes.
I feel like now is the time for that one. But yeah, I think Dunk is totally fair.
And so you're going to pick Baylor?
I mean, yeah, dude showed up.
He did show up.
Yeah.
He got bonked on the head.
He got bonked.
He took one
hard.
literally for the team.
Yes, he did.
R.I.P. to Crown Prince Baylor.
This is my first knighting of a Targaryen, too. It feels right.
And that's it for this episode. The sixth and final episode of this season of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms comes out next Sunday on HBO and HBO Max. And then join us right afterwards as we break it all down.
Yes, if you like what you are hearing and watching, don't forget to leave a rating and review on your podcast player of choice. You can find us on the Game of Thrones social media handles, and you can also watch us on HBO Max. Whoa. Yes, you can watch us on HBO Max. You can find me on Instagram at Greta M. Johnson. You can read my Substack. It's called Gretagram, and you can listen to my podcast called Happy to Be Here.
You can find me on Instagram at NETW3RK and listen to my podcast, X-Ray Vision, wherever you get your podcasts. The official Game of Thrones podcast, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, is produced by HBO in collaboration with Same Boat Studios. This podcast is hosted by Greta Johnson.
And Jason Concepcion, who also produces the show. Our executive producers for Same Boat Studios are Gabrielle Lewis and Barry Finkel. Our senior producer is Ben Goldberg. And the show is mixed by Hannes Brown. Our video editor is Stefano Sanchez. And our digital content producer is Insung Huang.
Special thanks to Michael Gluckstad, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, and Kenya Reyes from the HBO Max podcast team.
Thank you for listening. See you next week when we will get more of the fallout from this wild, wild episode.
This city is too small for us, Dunk. Let's show her our ass.